Hi, this is Chris Walker. Look, I'll be honest with you. I am tired of seeing people get robbed in broad daylight by the marketing departments at these big TV brands. It's 2026, and the word AI has officially been stripped of all meaning. You walk into a big box store, you see a glowing AI-powered sticker on a $600 panel, and you think you're buying the future. But 3 months later, you're staring at motion blur that looks like a 2014 budget set and upscaling that makes your favorite Netflix show look like it was filmed through a screen door. I've spent the last 6 months in the lab stress testing the newest silicon from Samsung, Sony, LG, and the value kings like TCL and Hisense, and what I found is a mess of half-baked features and AI gimmicks designed to hide cheap hardware. But there is a silver lining. There are 5 specific AI features that actually change the game, and if your next TV doesn't have them, you're basically buying a paperweight for the next decade. Before we tear into the data and expose which brands are lying to your face, do me a quick favor, hit that like button and subscribe. We don't take a dime from these manufacturers, so your support is the only reason we can keep these multi-thousand-dollar stress tests independent and honest. We're living in a moment where your TV's brain is officially more important than the glass it's made of. For years, we obsessed over panel types, OLED versus QLED, mini LED versus standard LED, but 2026 has flipped the script. If you look at the 2026 US market, specifically the 55-inch flagship bracket, we are seeing a massive shift in how these machines actually create an image. I've got a thermal camera in the lab right now pointed at a 2026 budget set, and you can literally see the processor struggling, spiking to nearly 85 degrees Celsius just trying to manage the AI upscaling for a simple 1080p stream. The scam of 2026 is the word AI ready. Brands are slapping this on TVs that don't even have a dedicated NPU, a neural processing unit. They're using the same old quad-core chips from 3 years ago and asking the software to do the heavy lifting. The result, a laggy interface, oil painting artifacts on faces, and a total lack of shadow detail. But when you find a TV that actually has a dedicated AI engine, like the ones we're looking at today, the difference isn't just better, it's a completely different viewing experience. Let's talk about the first model that actually blew my expectations out of the water this year, the TCL QM8K. Now, don't let the name confuse you. This isn't just another incremental update. This is TCL's first real attempt at what they call precision AI dimming. In the past, mini LEDs had a massive problem with blooming, that white glow you see around a candle in a dark scene, or around subtitles. It looked like trash, but the 2026 QM8K uses an AIPQ Pro processor that isn't just turning zones on and off, it's predicting where light will bleed before it even happens. I ran our standard star field test, thousands of tiny white dots on a pitch-black background, and for the first time on a set under $1,200, the black levels were virtually indistinguishable from an OLED. That is insane. We're talking about over 5,000 nits of peak brightness. Most TVs hitting those numbers would melt their internal adhesive in a year, but the AI here is actually throttling the power to specific pixels in micro-millisecond bursts. It's thermal AI, and it's the only reason this TV won't be a brick in 24 months. However, it's not perfect. TCL's AI upscaling, specifically on older 720p content like classic sitcoms, still has a tendency to over-sharpen. If you look closely at the edges of actors' faces, you'll see a slight white halo. It's the AI trying too hard to find detail where none exists. I'd give it a provisional score of 91 out of 100, because for the price, the sheer hardware power combined with that improved dimming is unbeatable for anyone who wants a home theater feel without spending $3,000. Before we move into the heavy hitters from Samsung and LG, I want to pause here because I work for you, not the brands. Tell me in the comments right now, what specific model or piece of tech are you agonizing over right now? Are you stuck between 2 specific sets? Drop the model numbers below. I read every single one of these, and I use your comments to decide which TVs we buy for the next round of torture tests. Let me know what you want to see next. Now, if you have a bit more room in the budget, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, the S95F. This is Samsung's 2026 QD OLED flagship, and they've integrated something called Vision AI. Now, usually when a company puts vision in a product name, I reach for my wallet to make sure it's still there. It's usually marketing fluff. But Samsung did something weird this year. They added a dedicated AI glare-free layer that works with the processor. If you've ever owned an OLED, you know the pain. A single lamp in the room ruins the contrast. But the S95F uses an NQ4 AI Gen 3 chip to analyze the ambient light sensors in the room and adjust the matte depth of the screen in real time. It sounds like sci-fi, but in our bright room testing, this outperformed every other OLED we've ever seen. The blacks stayed deep even with the sun hitting the panel. But here is the truth bomb they don't tell you. The S95F has a hidden AI power saver mode turned on by default that actually cuts your peak brightness by 40% after 30 minutes of use. They do it to prevent burn-in, but they don't mention it in the ads. In our lab, we saw the nits drop from 1800 down to 1100 during a long gaming session. If you aren't looking for it, you might not notice, but for a flagship, that's a sneaky move. Still, for gaming, with 165 Hz refresh rate and AI input lag reduction that brings latency down to a staggering 2.1 milliseconds, it's the gold standard. Score 96.
Finally, for part 1, we have the LG C6 OLED. LG has been the king of OLEDs for a decade, but 2026 is the year they finally stop being safe. They've introduced the Alpha 11 AI processor Gen 3. Unlike Samsung, which focuses on brightness and punch, LG's AI is obsessed with object recognition. It identifies what is a human, what is a tree, and what is the sky, and it applies different processing to each. In the Batman 2022, our favorite test for shadow detail, the C6 was able to pull out the texture of the cape in a scene that looked like a black blob on the budget sets. This is AI tone mapping. It's not just making things brighter, it's making them more accurate. However, the scandal with LG this year is the build quality. We've noticed a recurring theme in user reviews, what we call the 2026 dead pixel spike. It seems LG pushed the brightness on these EVO panels so hard that the heatsink isn't keeping up in the 55-inch chassis. If you buy this, you must ensure you have a solid warranty. Score 94/100. If you're sitting there thinking, Chris, I don't have $2,000 for a Samsung or an LG, don't worry. The mid-range is where the real AI war is happening, and that's where we're going next. If that first group of flagships felt like total overkill for your budget, this next segment is where the math actually starts to make sense for about 80% of you watching this. We're moving into the value pro territory, the TVs that hover around that $800 to $950 sweet spot. In 2026, this is where the most aggressive AI development is happening because brands like Hisense and TCL are trying to embarrass the legacy giants. Case in point, the Hisense U8P AI Pro. Last year's U8N was already a beast, but the 2026 U8P is a different animal. Its standout feature is AI Sports Mode 2.0. I took the set to a local sports bar during a Sunday afternoon NFL slate to test it against their commercial-grade panels. The Hisense uses its NPU to track the ball, whether it's a football, a baseball, or a hockey puck, and it applies predictive frame insertion. Usually when a ball flies across a 4K screen, it leaves a trail or it stutters. It's distracting. But the U8P's AI is literally guessing where that ball will be 2 frames before it gets there. The result? 144 Hz smoothness that actually feels natural. For the American buyer who lives for the NFL or the NBA, this feature alone makes it a contender. It also hits a staggering 3,000 nits of peak brightness. However, and here's the insider catch, the viewing angles on the U8P are still a struggle. If you aren't sitting directly in front of this TV, say you're on the side of the couch, the colors start to wash out and look gray. If you host big game day parties, that is a massive avoid flag. Score 88 out of 100. Next up is the Sony Bravia 8 Gen 2. Now, I know what you're thinking. Chris, isn't Sony supposed to be the expensive brand? Usually, yes, but they've repositioned the Bravia 8 this year as their AI efficiency model. While everyone else is chasing nits and brightness, Sony is doubling down on XR Clear Image Gen 2. I tested this with a 480p DVD of The Matrix. Pure nostalgia, but a nightmare for modern 4K TVs. Most TVs would just make that image a blurry, pixelated mess. But Sony's AI uses a cross-analysis database. It's not just guessing pixels, it's comparing the low-res image to a library of high-res textures stored on the chip. It was able to reconstruct the texture of Neo's leather coat in a way that looked like a native 1080p remaster. It's the best brain in the business. The downside, you only get 2 HDMI 2.1 ports. In 2026, when we have PS5 Pros, Xbox Series X2s, and high-end soundbars, only having 2 high-speed ports is a total joke. It's a hardware bottleneck on a software masterpiece. Score, 85 out of 100. Now let's look at something a bit more mainstream, the Roku Pro Series 2. You'll see the simplified Roku remote and the smart picture menu option. Roku used to be the cheap option, but their 2026 Pro Series is coming for the crown of the easiest TV to own. Their killer AI feature is Smart Picture Max. Here's where it gets weird. Most people, and I mean 90% of you, never touch your picture settings. You leave it in Vivid or Energy Saver and wonder why the movie looks blue or dim. Roku's AI recognizes the metadata of what you're watching and force adjusts the settings for you. If you switch from a bright cartoons for the kids to a dark thriller on HBO, the AI recalibrates the backlight and color temp in under a second without you touching the remote. But I have to be the bad guy here and talk about the hardware. While the AI is smart, the panel itself is heavy and fragile. Our lab unit actually arrived with a slight bend in the chassis just from the shipping process. Despite the mini LED label, the zone count is much lower than the TCL or Hisense, leading to some noticeable crushed blacks in very dark scenes. It's the perfect TV for your parents or someone who just wants things to work, but for a tech enthusiast, you'll feel the limitations. Score, 79 out of 100. I also want to touch on Vizio's 2026 P-Series Quantum X. Vizio has had a rough few years with software bugs, but they've made a huge comeback with AI home integration. In 2026, your TV is becoming a smart home hub, and Vizio's AI is the only one that doesn't feel like an afterthought. It uses predictive app loading. The AI learns that you watch Netflix at 8 p.m. every night, so it preloads the app into the RAM at 7:59 p.m. The app opens instantly, no spinning wheels, no waiting. But I'll be honest with you, Vizio's Watch Free Plus service is now so packed with AI-generated ad content that the home screen feels like a digital billboard. You can turn it off, but they bury the setting deep in the privacy menu. It's that kind of fine print behavior that makes me skeptical of the brand's longevity. Score, 82 out of 100. If the mid-range left you feeling like you're still making too many compromises, we need to talk about the Atmosphere King, the Philips Ambilight 9000 Series 2026 edition. Now look, Ambilight used to be a party trick. It was cool for 5 minutes and then you forgot about it. But in 2026, Philips has integrated AI scene extension. The processor isn't just mimicking the colors on the edge of the screen, it's using a generative AI model to extend the environment. If you're watching a jungle scene, the AI calculates the shadows of leaves that would technically be off camera and projects them onto your wall in real time. It makes a 55-inch TV feel like a 75-inch experience. It's the most immersive AI feature I've seen this year that has nothing to do with the actual pixels. But, and it's a big but, Philips is still using an older menu system that feels like a clunky Android phone from 2021. It's a Ferrari with a plastic steering wheel. Score, 84 out of 100. And we can't ignore the Sony A95L 2026 revision. Sony's big AI bet is Acoustic Surface Audio Pro. Most thin TVs sound like a tin can because there's no room for speakers. Sony's AI actually vibrates the entire glass panel to create sound. In 2026, the AI can now pinpoint the exact location of a character's mouth on the screen and make the sound come directly from
from that spot. It's the only TV on this list where I would tell you that you might not actually need a soundbar for a small room. Score 92 out of 100. So, let's wrap this up. If you are heading out to buy a TV in 2026, there are 5 AI features that are non-negotiable. If the spec sheet doesn't mention these, put the box back on the shelf. AI dynamic tone mapping. This is what stops your HDR movies from looking too dark. Neural 4K upscaling Gen 3. This is what makes your 1080p YouTube and Netflix look like actual 4K. AI input lag reduction. For gamers, this is the difference between winning and losing. AI glare management. Specifically on the higher-end Samsung and Sony sets, this is a lifesaver for living rooms with Windows. Generative maintenance. This is the hidden AI that cleans the pixels while the TV is off to prevent that dreaded burn-in.
All right, here is the Chris Walker verdict for 2026. If you want the absolute best overall, the TV that does everything and has the smartest brain in the business, it is the Samsung S95F. That glare-free technology and the NQ4 Gen 3 chip are just light years ahead of the competition right now. It is a masterpiece, even with the sneaky power-saving throttle I mentioned earlier. If you are looking for the best value, the TCL QM8K is the only logical choice. You're getting 5,000 nits and flagship-level AI dimming for literally half the price of the big names. It's the market disruptor of the year. And if you're a movie purist who only watches 4K Blu-rays in a dark room, the LG C6 OLED is still your best friend. The Alpha 11 processor handles skin tones and cinematic grain better than anyone else. Now for the truth bomb. 2026 is also the year of the 8K scam. You're going to see 8K TVs priced at $2,000 to tempt you. Do not buy them. There is still zero 8K content, and the AI upscaling required to make 4K look good on an 8K panel actually introduces more lag and heat. Stick to 4K and invest that extra money into one of the vetted sets I've linked below. I've put the links to the exact models we tested in the description. Those are vetted sources where you won't get sent an older revision or a regional variant with a weaker chip. Use those links to stay safe. This is Chris Walker. Don't let the marketing departments win. Buy smart, stay skeptical, and I'll see you in the next one.